back to my channel, Learn Smart Coding. In this video, we're going to see how to apply routing in our application and also how we will navigate from one page to a different page using a different route. Along with that, we will also see how to build a new module and import that module into our main app module. Now, without delay, let's get started. So we are back in our application. In app.html, we used to put the components directly to display the end result. So we are going to replace the middle part and put the routing here, and then we will see how the content are getting replaced dynamically based on the route. I'm going to create a new file under the app folder and name it as app.routing.module. It's basically a module file. So we're going to create an app routing module file. So I have installed an Angular extension by John Papa. That extension will help you to bring in a piece of snippet, and then from that snippet of code you can make use of that. So in order to bring in a snippet of code, I just say a-module, and then it brings me a snippet of code. That's because of that extension. So I type my module name app routing and then delete the unwanted thing. Here the unwanted things are the component and the component in the declaration. So I don't need all those things. I'm going to remove all those things and then have only the required app module and required app routing module. So I deleted everything. So now what we are going to do is we need to now apply a route. So route is from Angular and it accepts an array of routes. So each route will define the path and the component to go. So now we declare a constant variable called routes, and then that's an array of type. So the first route that we'll bring in is the default route. So the path is just an empty string, which means no one types anything after the website name. And we are saying the full match pattern, which is match pattern as full. So when there's nothing after the domain name, we consider that as the empty string and the match pattern is full. And we say we redirect such path to a path called home path. Now we will define the next route as home. So the path will be a home, which means the website name / home. And then the component that we need to use for this route is the home component. So we declare the home component for the component property. So we have two things. The next thing is we need to import this route into the app routing module. So for that, under imports, we will say router.forRoute. So we will say router module.forRoute. ForRoute basically means it's under the main route, which is like a parent level. So we apply that routes inside that, and then we export this app module itself, this app routing module. Okay, because we already have an export, and then the export that is there inside the module is the router module. So basically we need router module and this routing module. So both are present in the same one. So that's why we import that app routing module into our main app module. Okay, so whatever is exported also has come. Whatever we imported in the previous module also has been imported here. Now what we need to do is we need to apply a router outlet into the main content where we used to put the component. So router-outer, that is the Angular one that we need to use it for our routing. So we applied this. Great. See, everything started loading. The default home page has been brought up because there was nothing inside because there was nothing after the domain name. So it brought to the default path, which is home. Now to make more demonstration, let's create new components for about and contact us. Let's say we have two pages called contact us and about page. So we will quickly create using the CLI command. If you remember, it is ng generate component followed by the component path and component name. So here in this case, under the core, I would like to create two components called about us and the contact us. So I'm going to create ng generate component. Under the core, I will create the contact us first. It's building. The component got generated. The next component that we will create is the about us. Alright, we got two components created, which is under the core component, under the core folder. You see, there are two components, and these two components automatically got declared into the app module because of the CLI command. Now, what we have to do is we have to go to the header component and where the navigation is there, right? So we need to apply a router link. Router link is also again from the routing module, where we will assign a route for a particular hyperlink. So when you click on the particular hyperlink called home, it will take you to the route called slash home. So slash home, you know, as soon as the URL changes to slash home, the router will kick in and it will try to match the router path that we have defined already. And as soon as the path matches, it is going to take and put that component into the router outlet path. If you remember, the router outlet is under app component.html. Now we will quickly place two more routes called about us and contact us, and we declare exactly whatever we put into this router link is what the router also will have. So remember, the wordings should match. So let's take a moment and see how we are going to define the path. Now back to our router. So let's copy paste, and two times we can use the same thing for two routes that we have. One is the contact and another one is the about us. Here if you see, the path is contact as. This path should match what you have declared in the router link. So the second one is the about. So I will change this to about. Great, I applied both the components. Now you have these things. Let's take a look at the UI and see how it looks. Back to our UI, you can see the contact us and the about us page, and I'm clicking on the contact us. It took me to the contact us template. So if you remember, the contact us component doesn't have anything now, so it just got replaced in the center. That's why the home component went away and the contact us came inside the middle. That's how the routing works. See, if you click on about us, the about us component will be replaced in the center. So Angular will actually swap the components based on the routing mechanism that you put. Now what we are going to do is we are going to create a menu module under the menu, and we'll see how to do the menu module and import it into the main module. So back to the code, it is all same. I'm going to use the snippet and quickly create menu module here. Now we will also create a menu routing module. If you remember, we are doing exactly same what we did for the app module. So here menu dash routing dot module. So we will create a module, we will create a route. The route here will apply only for the menu module. We will shortly see how this will work. Okay, so back to our routing module. So we will going to copy paste a piece of code and I will explain you the route. So here, if you see, we have applied all those new routing there, and then we are going to import the same routing into our menu module. Here if you look, there are routes called a default route called an cosine component, and then the second one is the cosine id. So here what we are going to do is the component that we used, right, the two components for the cosine, we are going to export those components from this module itself. So we are using the food items and the cosine component from here. So this module will export the components as well as export the router module, as well as it imports the route applied for the cosine module. Back to our menu module, here we will, so here what we will do is under the declaration, the exported components, right, which is under the routed components, we are going to put it here. So literally meaning we are segregating the code for our simplicity, and in the import we will import the common module and the menu routing module. Now we have all the menu routing and the menu routing module ready. Now what we have to do is, now we should go back to our main app routing module, and here under the app routing module, apart from all these routes, we need to define a route for cosine. So now what will happen, anything after the website name starts with cosine, we are saying use the menu module, and under the menu module whatever is there for the children's, put it into the children's. That's what the load children's does. So now let's take a look. We don't need all these components which is sitting into the main module. This we have all separated and put it into the menu module. So we removed all those things. Now see, all the routes works. What is missing now? So we applied all the routes for the menu. It's time to put the menu link under the header. So here I'll put a link for the menu. it is building. We started saying menu. Now what happens, as soon as you click on the menu, the URL changes to the website name / cosine, which will put the new menu module into place, and under that the default path, which is nothing but the cosine component. So in our router outlet, the menu module will kick in and the cosine component will start showing up. Right, all works good. This is as simple as that for using the routing. Great, all looks good. Now what we need to do is, when you click on details view, we need to put this to a different route called cosine / food item / a particular cosine ID, right? And then we will display more details of a particular food that was selected. So in order to do that, let's create a component called food details, meaning a particular food in detail we are going to see. So I'm going to quickly create that food details component under the menu folder, because they belong to menu. Okay, it is getting generated. The component was added correctly to the menu module. You can go and see to the menu module, the new component got added here, but we don't need this, right? We will cut this and go back to our menu routing module and apply here. We'll bring in the namespace. Great, so the separation of code we have achieved. Okay, so we will apply a new route called food / food ID. Anything after a colon belongs a parameter. That is where you can use and retrieve the data from your URL. From the activated route, you can use and get the data which is sitting under the food ID property. The food ID is nothing but an ID which is present in your URL. We will be able to retrieve that using the activated route, which we will shortly see. Okay, so we're missing something. We'll go back to our food details component and place some piece of code, and then I'll explain you what it is doing. Basically, this component is having a similar code of what you have seen in the previous components, like the previous component that we developed, the food items and the cosine component. It is going to invoke two APIs called categories APIs and food details API in order to get the category name and also a particular food detail. And we will also call another API called food images, and that will bring us all the images of a particular food. Now I've copy pasted the HTML code also. I've commented a piece of code. I'll explain you why I've commented this. Now let's see how it works. I'm going to click on view details. There is nothing happening here. That's because view detail is a dummy button. We haven't done the work for the view detail. Now let's go back to the missing piece where the food item detail is there. In the food items component, we will inject a router in our constructor, and what we are going to do is, when someone clicks on that button, we will pass that particular ID of that food which was selected and put it into a different route. So here, back on the HTML code, here I'm going to call a method under the button click. So for a click event, which is the event binding, I will call this method and pass the item.id, which is nothing but that food ID, and that will take us to a different page. See, you saw the URL now, cosine / food / 2. 2 is nothing but the food ID. So if you click on any other food, that particular ID came. This time it is 10. So we can see the description of the food and the price and couple of things, right? Great. So these are all coming from the different APIs from the same API branch that we used. So what we are going to do is, we are going to apply a package called ngx bootstrap, a particular version, to support our carousel. So carousel is like you have more images and you wanted to nicely show those images one after the other, like a sliding effort. So I'm using an external package. So this is how you use an external package. So this time I've said ngx bootstrap followed by a version. So if you say npm install and then followed by a package name, it is going to install that package. So there was one thing missing. I installed the package, but I did not say to save it. So you basically have to say -- save. If you say -- save, This will go and save in the package.json file. Here you can see, right? So that next time when you build in any folder, it will download automatically. All the packages in the dependency will get downloaded automatically. So now everything is done. All the packages has been installed. Now let's go and uncomment the piece of HTML code that we already had. So let's uncomment a piece of code which uses that package. So as soon as I uncomment it, it's going to build, it's going to apply that. Great, we have an error. So this is an external package, and we used all the packages details, but we haven't imported this package in our main app module. That is why you are seeing this error. So what you need to do is go back to your menu module where this component is using and bring up the carousel module from that package. We are importing that module under this module, which means anything that you use this carousel within this module, it will pull up the data. If you put this directly on the app module, it will pull up for all the components. Let's uncomment this. Let it build. It is going to refresh the page. Okay, I'm going to click on any of the food items and it will take me to the next page. All right, see how nicely it is showing. So basically there are 4 images coming for this particular food ID. Let's open up the API and see how the structure looks like. So we are under the assigned food and a food item, a food ID called 1. So we are using this API, and then to pull up all the food images for a particular food ID, we use this API. So these 2 APIs are being triggered from that particular call. So if you come and put the food ID called 1, it is going to pull up all the information of a particular food ID called 1. So in this case it was samosa. So you see this base 64 images coming, the image name, the mine type, all those things are coming. You can also see this in the developer tool. Click on F12, which opens up your developer tool, and go to the network tab. Clear everything, go back to the network tab, go back and come back and see. Let's see what happens. So I clicked on it. You can see 2 calls going up. One is to pull up a particular food detail that you see in the description, price and other things, and then you see the description, and then the second one which pulls up all the images for a particular food item. So in this case we have this image that you're seeing on the screen. See, there are 4 items, 4 images. So we're displaying the 4 images using the ng for and the carousel component. Let me take a moment and explain you a piece of important code. So in this component, if you see, we have injected the activated routes, and using the activated routes you can, so by using the activated route in the ng on unit, if you see, you can literally retrieve the ID that is specified in your route, which is also matching in your URL. You can retrieve that ID. So in our case, the number 1, right, which is after the food/1, that represents an ID called food ID. If you remember, that is there in our routing component, food ID. Whatever you place here, you can use the same name and retrieve the data. If you put ID, you need to put ID over there as well. So this is the only piece of code that is new for you guys. So we use this piece of code to retrieve the data, and then once we have the data, we invoke the get categories, and after the get categories is returning the data, we invoke 2 calls, which is food details and the food images. The reason why it is chained with one after the other is, in order to show the category of a particular food, we need to first have the category API returning the data. So that's why after the category data, we are calling 2 more things and then looping the data and showing up images here. Everything else is same. Whatever you have seen in the course, it's all what we are using it again. Go through the code and you will definitely understand. If not, come back and comment what you don't understand. I'm happy to help you guys. So this brings us to the end of this video as well as end of our course, Angular Getting Started. Just to summarize what we learned in the entire courses, we learned the basics of Angular. We know how to define components using the CLI, or also manually how to create components, and we know how HTML works, how template works. We went through a lot of example with the data binding. one-way binding, two-way binding, interpolations, even binding, and then using the ng model, we used the different tracking mechanism. We also created different components. We saw how to pass the pipes, how to invoke the external APIs using the HTTP servers, and finally we also applied the routing and saw how routing works with different URLs. This has most of the important features that you need to know as a developer as you get started with Angular. However, we still have a few more things to learn, which you can learn separately in a different video. The one important thing that you know is the reactive forms. Reactive forms we will use in the next video to how to create all these data. The data is all we have retrieved, right? We need to know how to create the data. So we will use the reactive form to generate the forms and apply the validations nicely and see how we can post the data, update the data, delete the data. All those things you will see in the reactive module. I hope you enjoyed this course, and this will help you to start your journey. Learn and practice more. The more you have hands-on practice, the more you will not forget. The more you encounter error and solve yourself, the more you will never ever forget, and that is how you learn and grow. Thanks for watching. If you like my video, don't forget to subscribe my channel, like it, share it, comment it, and never forget to click on the bell icon.